Hey everyone, this is Kathy from K-Dale Handmade, and I wanted to welcome you to the Marathon Society's Victoria Wristlet Sew Along. The Victoria Wristlet is a pattern by Mormino, and I wanted to just send a big thank you out to Lauren Mormino for letting us use this pattern in our sewing marathon for this month. And this is a super cute pattern. I'm going to modify it a little bit, so I won't be doing a wrist strap. I'm going to be doing a full strap, and I'll show you the measurements and how I do that in the pattern or in the video. And yeah, it's super cute. It has a front pocket that has snaps, and inside there is a zipper pocket and card slots. So let's go ahead and go over the pieces that we're going to need, and then we'll get started. Okay, so let's go over the pieces that we're going to need to make the Victoria Wristlet. So you're going to have your main panels, and you will have 2 in exterior and 2 in lining. And I am using cork for my exterior, and this is a luxe woven nylon for my lining. I am not interfacing either of those because I feel like they're going to be firm enough. But if you are using the same and you like a bit of a more firm bag, then feel free to add some interfacing. You also have a front angled pocket, so you'll have an exterior and a lining in that. There's an accent piece. You'll need one of those. There's a D-ring tab. The pattern calls for 1. I'm using 2 because I'm going to be adding a strap all the way around that's going to connect on the sides, so I have 2 of those. I also have 2 of the zipper tabs. In the lining, you're going to need your zipper pocket. This is for the inside, and I used cotton with this, cotton woven, and then I interfaced it with SF101. And then for the card slots, again, I used cotton woven, interfaced it with SF101, and then I trimmed down about 1/2 of an inch all the way around, just to help keep it out of the seam allowance. Okay, you will also need 2 zippers, and the measurements are provided in the pattern instructions. And then you will have, if you are doing the wristlet, you will have the measurements for that and the hardware for that. Since I am not, and I'm just going to be doing a crossbody strap, I have 2 measurements here, or 2 pieces. I'm using cork, and these are 1.5 inch long by, or 1.5 inch wide by 34 inches long, and I have 2 of those. So if you wanted to make the shoulder strap option along with me, that is the measurements for that. Okay, that's all the pieces that we're going to need. Oh, and we will need, I almost forgot, we have magnetic snaps that we're going to be using to close the front pocket. So if you're adding magnetic snaps, you will need 2 of those as well. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is work on some prep work, and so this is going to be the main zipper on the top of the bag. And because I'm using cork, if you're using fabric, you will have this piece that is measured in the pattern instructions. Because I'm using cork, it is non-fraying. I'm going to trim mine down, and then I'm just going to fold it over the edge, and you'll see it is much wider than I need for the width of my zipper, but that's okay. I'll just trim it off after I get it stitched down. So I'm just taking the cork and I'm folding it over the raw edge of the zipper, just enclosing that end, and I am totally fine with leaving this raw a raw edge for the cork. If you don't like that, since that's non-fraying, I just like it that way because it's going to help keep the bulk down out of that top seam and where you turn the zipper through in the top there. But if you don't like that raw edge look, then you are more than welcome to stitch it down and then flip it back and under and then top stitch along that way. Okay, so I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine. I'm going to just stitch down right here, trim off these edges, and then we'll be ready for the strap. Okay, so that is stitched on both sides. I trimmed it to be even with the width of the zipper, and now we can set this to the side for now. For the strap that I'm doing, I'm going to take my 2 pieces of cork. I'm going to lay them down like this and stitch a diagonal line from this corner to this corner. So let me just draw a line to see if that'll help visualize what I'm talking about here. So you want to stitch it right where those lines meet. So you want to line it up just like that. Then you're going to stitch it down, flip this back, and then that will give us one long strip. Okay, so I stitched that, butterflied open the seam, and then top stitched down each side, and now I have one big long strap. So now what I want to do is I'm going to flip it over. I want to fold the 2 long pieces into the center, and then I'm going to fold it in half. Okay, so that's what you're going to end up with. So I'm going to do that. I'm probably going to use some double-sided tape. I'll do that, fold it all the way down, and then we're going to top stitch it. So let me grab my tape and we'll get that ready. Okay, so I am using a super sticky double-sided tape. I got this from Walwack, and I will link to that in the notes in the description for the video. It is up to you. I prefer using double-sided tape. I know some people don't like it, so use whichever method you prefer. We're just going to fold this. I'm going to put it along the whole length of the strip, and then we're going to fold it to the center. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. And if it helps you, you can always draw a center line down the middle so you know exactly where the center of the strap is. I am just eyeballing this one. Okay, once you have that all pressed to the center, now we're going to fold it in half, and I'm going to add some clips to hold it in place as we go. Okay, now that I have that all clipped, I am going to stitch across here, stitch across this opened edge right here. So stitch along this line all the way down the whole length. So only on the one side. So just across each end and across where it is open, I'm just going to stitch at about 1/8 of an inch from that edge all the way down to the other side. Once I get to the other side, I'm going to stitch across the bottom of that one as well. Okay, here's the completed strap, stitched all the way down. And now we can set this to the side. Okay, to make the D-ring tab connectors, again, the pattern calls for 1. I am making 2 since I am adding a strap to my bag. So what you're going to do is you're going to flip it over to the back side. You're going to draw a line down the center like this, and then you're going to fold the long edges into that center line. So I am adding some double-sided tape here to help me hold that cork in place. Okay. And then removing the tape, we're just going to fold that long edge into that line. So what you will have is a skinny strip like this, and then you're going to top stitch down each long edge of each strap. Okay, once you get your pieces top stitched, you will have 2 strips just like this. These are the D-rings. Again, if you're making the wristlet, you're only going to have 1. But since we're making the strap for our bag, we have 2. Okay, now we're ready to move on to the next step. Okay, the next thing we're going to be doing is adding the magnetic snaps. The pattern does make a note for if you have a wider zipper foot, you might want to wait to put the snaps on until after you top stitch. I'm using a narrow foot, so I'm going to add mine now according to the pattern instructions. So what I've done is I have already gone, I don't know if you can see, they're very faint. I've already marked here and here on the pattern piece, and then here and here, and that's where we're going to be adding the snap pieces. So to add on this one, this is the lining of the pocket. So it's the inside back lining of the pocket. We're going to be adding the female side of the snap to that piece. So that will be that one. The female side is that piece, and then the male side is that piece. Okay, so first thing we need to do is we need to mark our placements. So right where that center dot was that I made earlier, I'm just going to mark my little lines here. And then using a seam ripper, I'm going to just poke it in at the bottom of that line and rip up to the top of the line. Just going really slowly on this. If you're newer to using a seam ripper and this scares you, or if you haven't put this in too many times, optionally you could do, now I wouldn't do it on the cork, but you could put a straight pin in here, and then that way when you seam rip, you would stop at the pin, you wouldn't go any farther. But if you just go slow, you shouldn't have any issues with it going further than you want it to. Okay, so once I have that, I'm going to push that through, flipping it over to the back side. Now I am using a piece of Decoville Heavy. I have already cut the slit lines on that. And then you put the washer on, and then press your little tabs off to the side. Okay, so that's what your first snap will look like. Same on the other side. You're going to push that through. Add the piece of Decoville Heavy, or any sort of firm. You could also use Peltex. Any sort of firm interfacing would work. Stabilizer. Okay. I always flip mine over and then just kind of use my table to help press those away. Okay, so that is your first side of the snaps attached. Optionally, you can add a piece of duct tape over the top of here, and that will just help to protect your material from any rub against the hardware. Okay, now for the other side, and let me grab the other washers. Okay, now I'm adding the snaps to the other side. Now this is going to be on one of your exterior pieces, and the placement marks are provided on the pattern, so you know where you're going to be putting your snaps. Okay, now that I have those marked, I'm going to do just like I did for the other side. Make those little slits. All right, and then installing the other half of the snap, pushing it through, Decoville Heavy, and then folding the snaps back, folding the little tabs back. Last snap. Don't go real heavy. Okay, and then again, if you wanted to add some duct tape to the back of that, you could to help protect your fabric, but for now, our snap pieces are installed. Okay, the next thing we're going to be doing is making the outer V-shaped pocket. So you're going to need your exterior pocket piece that has the V shape cut out, and then your accent piece. What we're going to be doing is laying the accent piece, lining it up right on the top, and then we're going to be stitching this on. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to top stitch along this bottom at 1/8 of an inch from the edge, and then we're just going to baste stitch close to the edge along the top and the sides. Okay, once that is stitched on, now we need to grab our other pocket piece that has the snaps. We're going to place them right sides together, lining up the top. I'm just going to add a few clips here to help hold it in place. Okay, now we're going to stitch along this top edge only. So there are seam allowance measurements in the pattern instructions. We're going to top stitch along this edge, trim this then down by half, flip the panels over so that they will be wrong sides together, and then we are going to top stitch again along this edge. Okay, I have that stitched, so now I'm just going to trim it back by half. And then pushing this through, actually I'm going to right in this corner right here, I am going to try to snip just up to the stitch line, not cutting through my stitches. And then I think I'm going to do it also just a little snip right here in this corner just to help it kind of ease around as I'm flipping it the right side away, right side around. Okay, so now we're going to flip it over, pushing everything out. We want it to be wrong sides together, right sides out. And then I'm just kind of rolling the seams here to get them where I want them to be. Okay, so once you have that turned right side out, so your wrong sides are together, we're going to take that and top stitch along this top curved edge. Okay, the pocket is top stitched. Now what we need to do is attach it to our main outer panels, so the part that has the snaps. We are now going to snap the pocket in place, and it should line up. And then what we want to do, I'm just going to add a couple clips here, and we are just going to baste down the sides and across the bottom. Okay, so now you're just going to baste stitch along the sides and across the bottom. Okay, the last thing we need to do here, now that this is all basted around, is we need to attach the D-ring tabs. So I'm going to be attaching mine right there. There is a measurement provided in the pattern instructions for how far down you want to measure from the bag. from the top of the bag. So I've already marked mine, placing the D-rings facing in towards the center of the bag. And then I'm just going to baste those on. Okay, the side tabs are basted on. Now we can set this to the side and move on to the lining panels. Okay, the first thing we're going to be working on in the lining is the zipper pocket. So you're going to need one of your lining panels, one of your pocket panels. You're going to fold them both in half and give it a little crease, a finger press is good enough. And that's just so you can find the center of your panels. You're going to open them up, align those folded center lines, and there are measurements for how far down from the top of this panel you want to place your pocket panel. You're going to line that up, and then you're going to draw a zipper box. So again, the pattern gives the measurements for how far down, how big this box is, width and height. So you can draw your zipper box, and then what we're going to do is we're going to just stitch all the way around this box. I would decrease my stitch length just to make that a little bit easier. And then we're going to, if you've done a zipper pocket like this before, we're going to be cutting the opening, turning it through, and then adding our zipper. So the first thing we're going to do, like I said, measure where this is supposed to be, draw your zipper box, and then let's stitch around that zipper box. Okay, once you get your box stitched, what we're going to be doing is cutting a line down the center, and you can draw your line if that helps. I'm just going to make a little mark here just to help visualize, stopping before each end, and then you're going to cut out to each corner. Okay, so you're just cutting down the center line and then cutting out to each corner. And usually what I like to do is I will use my rotary cutter to make the center cut. And then I will come back with my scissors and get closer and then snip up into those corners. And again, you want to snip as close as you can into that corner without cutting your stitch. You don't want to cut your stitch line. If you do, you'll just have to go back and stitch over it again. But if you don't get close enough to your corner, when you turn it through, you could have some puckering in that corner. Okay, so once you get that cut, we're going to press or push the lining panel through the outer panel. So you're going to have something like this. You want to just work with your seams, get them laying nice and flat. You can take it to the iron board and give it a press. And then from the other side, that looks pretty good. I'm just going to take this over to the iron, give it a nice press, and then I'll be back so we can add on the zipper and finish the pocket. Okay, the next step is to add the zipper to the zipper pocket. So once you have your hole cut out and your lining pushed through and pressed, everything looks good, we're going to take the zipper, and then determining which way you want your zipper to open and close. The rounded side of the zipper is where it will open and close, and I like mine opening and closing to the left, just personal preference. If you like yours opening to the right, feel free to flip your zipper around. Okay, we're going to add some double-sided tape to each long edge of the zipper tape. And then removing the paper backing on the double-sided tape. We're going to try to center the zipper over the opening. So usually what I'll do is I'll just flip this back so I can visualize where the sides are and then see where the zipper ends, because I want about the same amount of overhang on each side. You might have to just play with your zipper a little bit to get it lined up just right. Get that zipper pull out of the way. Once everything is looking good and looking centered, I always like to double check on the back, making sure I have enough overhang. Now we're going to come back to the sewing machine, and we're going to stitch a box all the way around this at the seam allowance right here, so that will attach our zipper to this lining panel. Okay, that is stitched on. Double checking the back, make sure you have enough overhang on the zipper, so that looks really good. Now we're going to flip it over so that it is wrong sides up, so you're looking at the inside of your pocket. You're going to take your other pocket piece, lay it down on top of that one so the pocket pieces are right sides together. And then we're going to clip it in place all the way around. And then we're going to stitch all the way around according to the seam allowance. We're going to stitch all the way around. That's going to connect these two pieces together, thus creating your zipper pocket. Okay, once that is stitched all the way around, you can check it out. You got a beautiful little pocket. Okay, now we can set this panel to the side, and we're ready to move on to the other lining piece, which will create our card slots. Okay, so to make the card slots, you're going to take your card slot panel, and if it is directional, you're going to start measuring up from the bottom and then marking your lines according to what is provided in the pattern instructions. I've already done that, so what I need to do now is just fold along these lines. So the first fold is going to be wrong sides together. I'm just going to press along that line and then flipping it over along the next line there, right sides together. Just want to make sure I'm on that line. Okay, and then flipping it back along the next line, wrong sides together. Right sides together, so it's right sides together, wrong sides together, right sides together, wrong sides together, all the way up, making your card slots. Okay, and your panels should line up like this. Just flip it over, see how they look. Mine are a little bit off, of course, because I didn't fold them with the ruler, but you can always adjust them as needed. And then these two panels line up here along the bottom. So I'm going to take this over to the iron, just give it a little press to help hold my folds, and then I'll be back to show the next step. Okay, now that I have those folded, I'm going to take it to the sewing machine and I'm going to top stitch along the first three only. So not top stitching this last one, just top stitch along these edges. So I will fold all the other pockets out of the way, top stitch this one, and then I'll bring this one over, top stitch this one, and then the same for the last one. So just making sure you're only top stitching along the pocket piece only. Okay, once you have those first three pockets stitched, now we're going to take this last one and folding along this top fold, we're going to flip it the other way. So we're now right sides together. Let's leave a little clips add a couple clips here. And what we're going to do is we're going to stitch around here to here, leave an opening, and then stitch here to here. Okay, so according to the seam allowance, stitch along these sides, leave this open because we're going to turn it through. Okay, once that is stitched, you have your opening here at the bottom. I'm just going to trim the corners a little bit. And here at the top, just to help keep the bulk out of these corners as I turn it through. And then through that opening, we're going to turn the whole thing back through. And this is what's going to seal the sides and the bottom. All right, I'm going to grab a little turning tool here. Let me see if I can find it. I think this will work. Usually I use a knitting needle. I do have an actual like turning tool. I just don't know where it is right now. You know how that is, right? You put it down and then you're like, where did that thing go? I just had it. That's where mine is. Somewhere on the sewing table, no doubt. I just don't know where it is at the moment. Okay, so once we get that pushed out, we're just going to fold those in, take it over to the sewing machine, give it another good press to keep it nice and folded, and then we're going to top stitch along this top pocket now. Okay, once you get that top stitched, your bottom seam allowance is in where that opening is. I measured down the center, so I know where to draw my stitch line, or where I should say where to stitch my stitch line. There is a measurement provided in the pattern for how far down you want the top of this to be, and then centered, of course, you can use this as your center mark. Fold this in half again to find the center there, and then line up your marks. And then what you're going to do is you're going to stitch down here, up that center line, and then to the other side according to the seam allowance. Make sure you go according to the seam allowance so that your card slots will actually be the right size to hold your cards. Okay, so once you have that stitched on, you can double check your pockets, make sure your cards fit nice. And then on this very last one, this one is a much deeper pocket, so you could always use this to maybe fold a couple bills in half, receipts or other little things. You could put it inside there. If you put your card this way, it will go down pretty far. So just something to keep in mind there. It's a neat little spot if you wanted to add some cash. Okay, now we are done with the lining panels, and let's go ahead and move on to finally putting this baby together. Okay, so to put it together, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our exterior piece with the pocket. We're going to lay that right side up, and then taking our zipper with the zipper pull to the left when closed, we are going to center the zipper on this panel. So you want it centered, and then we are going to clip it in place. Now you could baste stitch here if you want to hold that in. And then the other thing you want to do is grab one of your lining panels. So now thinking about this being the outside or the front of the bag, do you want your zipper pocket to be on that side, or do you want your card slots to be on that side? I think I want my zipper pocket to be here, so I'm going to take this, put it right sides down, again aligning it along that top edge. And like I said, you could baste this zipper on before you connect, or before you lay the zipper pocket panel on top. That's totally up to you. You could also use double-sided tape to help hold it in place. Whichever method you prefer. Now what we're going to do is we're going to just stitch straight down that top edge there. Okay, so that is all stitched through. Now what we want to do is press the exterior away from the zipper. So we have the zipper and the seam allowance coming to this exterior side, not on the lining, and then we are going to top stitch straight down this exterior edge. Okay, so that is top stitched just through that exterior. Now we're going to flip that lining panel down, just kind of finger press it to keep it out of the way, and then we are going to repeat all those steps to attach the other exterior and then whichever other lining panel you chose. Okay, so let's do that. I'm going to use some double-sided tape here. Instead of basting, I'm just going to use that to help hold my zipper in place along that exterior panel. So I'm lining up my sides here and then just pressing that down just to help hold it for now. Taking my exterior or my other lining face down. I'm going to clip that in place along the top, lining up all of those edges. And then I'm going to, again, just like I did on the other side, I'm going to stitch according to the seam allowance all the way across, and then take my exterior piece, flip it away from the zipper, and then top stitch along this folded edge. Okay, once you get that done, we are ready to put this all together. So now you want to just unzip your zipper to the middle so you are able to access it once we get it to the turning through the final part. You're going to flip it open. You're going to put your two lining pieces together and your two exterior pieces together. So lining up that top seam, I'm going to add a couple clips there just to help hold it in place because I really want that top seam to stay matching, because that's what's going to make the finished piece look really good. Okay, so I'm going to clip it all the way around. I will come over to this other side before I finish clipping around and just make sure this one is matched up as well. And again, adding those couple clips. Okay, now I'm going to finish clipping around the outside, so around the exterior pieces. And then for on the lining pieces, we want to leave a turning hole. So somewhere around 4 inches, I would say, would be a good size to leave for your turning hole. So just remember when you are stitching your panels together that you're not going to stitch all the way across this bottom like we did on the zipper pocket on the inside. You do need to leave a little bit of a hole so that we can turn it through in the final assembly. Okay, so now that that is clipped, what we're going to do is we're going to, remembering that hole is there, we're going to start here, stitch all the way around according to the seam allowance. I'll probably come in slightly for the lining panels just to help it lay nice and snug inside. Coming around and then stopping right here, again leaving this unsewn so that we can turn it through. Okay, so I'll head over to the machine, stitch all the way around, and be back. Okay, so I have that stitched all the way around. The last thing I'm going to do is just trim a little bit here on the corners and then trim the seam allowance down by about half. I will trim off these little tabs here to make sure Everything is even on the sides. And then again on the lining. Trimming that down by about half, and then across that corner, trimming that. You can trim your exterior also if you would like to. Again, this is optional, you don't have to do this, but sometimes having a little less bulk in the seams there once you turn your bag through, it really helps it to lay nicely on the inside. Okay, now the last thing I think I'm going to do before I turn it through is right on the sides there where I have the tab connectors. I'm going to add just another tiny row of stitching just to the outside of my original stitch line. I think that'll just help give it a little bit extra support as I'm using the bag. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll be back and we can turn it through. All right, let's turn this through. So reaching in through this hole, go ahead and reach in, open your zipper all the way, and then I usually start with just one corner and try to grab it, push it through, and then just slowly work it through. Okay, once you get all the corners poked out, I will fold this under. So just like we did on the card slots, you want to close that seam. I'm just going to add a couple clips. Okay, now you can push it to the inside and see how everything is going to lay. I think that's going to look really good. I don't have it pushed all the way down because of those clips, but if everything looks good, then you are ready to close your opening. So go ahead and pull that lining back out. Okay, then we're going to take it over to the sewing machine. Stitch this opening closed. So you're going to stitch as close as you can to the edge of that opening. Making sure to catch both sides. Just stitch along that bottom there. Close the opening, push it back in, and then we'll be back for the last part. Okay, so once that is closed, everything is laying really nicely inside there. You've got your card slots, you've got your zipper pocket. On the front here you have your snap pocket. All right, so the last thing we need to do is attach the strap. Now what I will do with this one is I will just feed one of the ends through that opening there, and let's just tie a little knot in the bottom of the strap. And that will be enough that it won't pull out. So bringing the bag all the way around to the other side. Same thing, slide it in. Tie a knot in the end of this strap and this strap end. And there you go. There is your bag. So you've just turned this wristlet into the cutest little crossbody or shoulder bag. Now, because this is so long, if you don't want to wear it as a crossbody, you just want to wear it as a shoulder bag, you always have the option to just do same, like a little knot here in the top of the strap, and then that would be on your shoulder. That would be really cute too. Okay, so there it is. There is the Victoria Wristlet by More Me Know. And again, I wanted to thank you so much for joining me for this video tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you like the bag. I hope you really have fun with this pattern. And again, I wanted to give a big shout out, a big thank you to Lauren Mormino for giving permission for us to use her pattern for this sewing marathon. I'm going to link in the video description where you can find the pattern, where you can get the cork, all the hardware that I used, all that kind of stuff, so that you guys can find it and make one yourself if you would like to. Really hope you had fun. Again, thank you so much for joining me for this sewing tutorial, and please support all of the other makers who are participating in this marathon. Watch all of the videos in the marathon, and I will link to them as well in the video description. And you'll also be able to find a link to the Marathon Sewciety, the sewing marathon series that I'm participating in on my YouTube channel. So, all right, guys, that's it. Have fun. Thank you again so much for joining me, and happy sewing.